Before we get to the actual video, I wanted to let you guys know that I will be attending BookNet Fest in September. It's going to be from September 1st to September 2nd in Orlando, Florida, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We are going to have booktubers, bookstagrammers, and bloggers all coming together. I think there are a couple of authors and publishing people involved as well, and it'll be a really fun day-long event where there will be different panels, there will be mixers, and I hope I see you guys there. Alright, on to the video now. Hi friends! So, we're here today to do our first recap for the month of August, and it's been an interesting reading month. I don't know about him, but all of the books I've been reading have been pretty good, and I hope that stays true to the end of the month. But he's going to start us off.
All of this tight-lipped.
He's going to start us off with an ebook that he finished reading, and that's all I'm going to say.
So I just finished Lord of Shadows, and for those of you who've watched our bookshelf tour, you know very well how I feel about Nephilim. I hate them even more now. And like I said, not all of them, and then in said bookshelf tour, not all of them are bad, and easily the Blackthorns are my favorites, but you know, after Lord of Shadows, it's just, I'm like, okay, so let's do all of that. So I feel like ranting about it should be its own video, but
you can just put it in my vlog.
You should put it in the vlog. Yeah,
when I get there.
When Alexa gets to vlogging about the Shadow Hunters, I will pop in for sarcasm and anger, just lots of anger, because I just, you know, but overall, it's still pretty well written. I think Cassandra Clare has, you know, really grown in her ability to manage several threads moving forward, and knowing this from reading book one to now having several threads going on at the same time, several POVs, and capturing a different tone for each. Gotta give her credit for that. Like, it's a different tone for each point of view, rather than it's one narrator for different people's lives. So I really like that. I really like how that changed. And so if you're a Shadowhunters fan, totally pick it up. You need to know what happens next.
Okay, well, the first book that I'm going to show you is The Dreadful Tale of Prospero by Alexandra Bracken. This is her first middle grade novel. Well, technically the second, because her Star Wars novel also reads as a middle grade. And this is about a boy named Prospero, and he's kind of the odd one out in his family, I guess. He's not as gifted or as talented or as easily swayed to do everyone's bidding, particularly their grandmothers. And it turns out he has a demon inside of him.
Oh.
So, yeah, that's fun. And basically it's all the shenanigans that ensue because people want the demon dead, some other people want the demon out. I mean, really, it has all the hijinks you'd expect from a middle grade novel. And I hate to say it, like, there are so many great characters in this one, but my favorite character is Alistair, and he's the demon, because his voice is amazing, and he just made me laugh a lot, even when he was thinking really evil thoughts. So yeah, it's a fun read for the fall, I would definitely say, because it's got like Halloween vibes to it. And it's just a really entertaining adventure, and I look forward to seeing what happens next.
Give me some of that QB Bartimaeus stuff. Yeah, I want to read this. As you know, I'm David Baldacci trash, so I just finished The Fix, which is a book about the memory man, Amos Decker. He was a former football player that, after a really bad football accident, suddenly has
synesthesia boy.
Yeah, synesthesia. Well, you know, that's just like the icing on the memory man cake, because he now can remember absolutely everything. It's altered his personality, makes him an awesome detective, but definitely not a great people person. So, obviously my kind of guy. The Fix is about, it opens up really, really cool. And the opening scene is, there's this dude that Amos sees on his way to like the FBI place. And then out of nowhere, dude shoots random lady and then shoots himself in the head. And I thought, that's a, and then he remembers everything, obviously synesthesia, so everything turns blue because that's what he associates with death. So everything turns blue, and he's like, what the hell just happened in front of the FBI building? And so it sends them down in a rabbit hole. So not my favorite Amos Decker book, though I pretty much played up that opening scene. It was all downhill pretty much from that opening scene. But not in a bad way. It was like downhill and like, not a steep climb, just kind of like, and it's a little dip, and okay, I guess it just kind of peters out that way. So it's not a bad hill. It's not the greatest hill either.
It's not a bad hill.
It's not, again, I love David Baldacci and I'm branching onto his books. I still prefer My Approachable Assassins. I hear another one is coming out real soon, so I'm very excited about that, and you will hear about it more on this blog.
The next two books I read are part of the same series, and are books that I was meaning to read like a long time ago, and that's Frostblood, which I have here, and Fireblood, which is now with a friend of mine. And these two books are set in a world where people have elemental abilities. Well, some people have elemental abilities. And it's about a girl named Ruby, and she gets captured by Frostbloods in the first book. She is a Fireblood. And eventually, at some point, someone comes to free her from jail on the condition that she works with them to kill the Frost King. And I will say that the first book is very entertaining. It's very quick to read. It has a lot of very familiar tropes, but I think that Ellie Blake's world building and her characters are strong enough that they still feel very fresh. I am particularly fond of one character, but it's not the main character, which is kind of funny. And even though there were definitely some predictable points in this story, and even though I still feel like the pacing could have been tightened a little bit in Frostblood, I still definitely enjoyed it, and I definitely like the characters enough to read the second book, which is Fireblood. And in that one, a lot of things have already happened. Obviously, can't tell you what they are because you have to read this one first.
Yeah.
But suffice to say that I really came to love Ruby, the main character in the second book. I think it was definitely a story that contributed to her personal growth. Like, she had to go through so much in that book. And there were a lot of fun characters in that one too. I think I liked it a little bit more than Frostblood just because the pacing was a little bit better. Even though I did guess at a few things still, because again, very familiar tropes. But it's definitely a fun fantasy series. I highly recommend checking them out.
Awesome. Speaking of second installments, I finally finished Batman Detective Comics #2 after the DC Rebirth thing happened. So straight from the insane events, they had a great first TPB, and the team that was been put together. So we've got Spoiler, we've got Cassandra Cain, and we've got all of these other. We've got Clayface in there, which I've actually liked what they've done with Clayface. Clayface is kind of like a reluctant anti-hero, and he just wants to be pretty again because he was, well, no, that's just me putting my thing on play. He just wants to be a normal person. What? He was a handsome young actor apparently in this continuity, and now he's Clayface and with 1,000 faces. So poetic in that sense. I'm not so happy with where they took it, mostly because the events of the first book kind of had such splintering, literally and figuratively, effects on the team, and those splinters really just turned into full-blown, deep, rivets, and now they're just, smashed. And Batwoman and Batman are just trying to pick up the pieces. Apparently they're cousins. Did anybody know that they were cousins? I didn't know they were cousins.
I didn't know they were cousins.
But
I don't know a lot of.
But they're awesome. I dig that the Bat family is now literally kind of a real Bat family. And this time they put some blood into it, and so it's refreshing to see Bruce and Batwoman just kind of come together and take care of these new kids. So it's not as up to speed as the first one, but I still recommend it because, hey, it's just, the tale's just begun, right? So we're just building up towards something.
Oh yeah, because that's the second one.
That's the second one.
The next book I read, I also don't have with me because I gave it to my friend, and that's Witchwood by Tara Maffei. This is set in her Furthermore world, which is her middle grade world, and I actually loved it even more than Furthermore. Witchwood is the story of a girl named Layla. Oh my gosh, her name is so complicated. Anyway, Layla. I'm pretty sure it's Layla. It's about a girl named Layla, and she is a Mordishor, which means she washes the dead bodies in order to ensure that the soul passes on to the afterlife. And unfortunately, she's left to do it on her own since both her parents are pretty much not around. And her life changes when she encounters two very familiar strangers, wink wink from the first book, and things spiral from there. And once again, it's one of those fun middle grade adventures where there are like ridiculously over the top whimsical things going on, but it totally works because if you've read Furthermore, you know that that is what kind of world they're in. And I really like this one because of the relationships in it. I love the friendships, I love the potential for a ship. The potential for a ship, oh my gosh. I understand how Macky feels about like not getting the ship.
Like,
although mine, in all fairness, mine actually has like real potential for it to actually go like that into a ship.
Well, isn't that the most frustrating piece, right? Where it's just like right there, and just nothing,
It was beautiful as usual. The writing was so great. The setting was wonderful. The lore behind it was so good, and I definitely think you should check Witchwood out.
The things I'm seeing without you. So, in the tradition of terminally ill and or dead, characters in a contemporary story, and I say tradition because the very few YA contemporary books that I've actually read do involve that. So I suddenly find myself liking this book, which is it's a book about Tess Fowler, who is currently mourning the death of her long-distance boyfriend. Hijinks ensue when she discovers things around his death that changed basically her entire relationship with him and how she thinks about him. So it's weird, it's uncomfortable, and I like how the author was able to capture, Peter Bergnani was able to capture that the discomfort, uncomfortableness, whatever that is, like just how icky it is, basically. Yeah, because that's a smart word to use.
I use that word.
It is icky. It's just like, she's really, while at the same time keeping it light and focusing on, and this is the best part of this book, it really focuses on how she's healing from the ickiness, basically. And
yeah,
I like how, right? I like how it didn't take away from the fact that this is a girl trying to, you know, be on the mend. And you know, because it's YA contemporary, insane things happen that are possible but are so unlikely. Like, I don't know, in other books, YA contemporary people that are terminal end up using their Make-A-Wish Foundation wishes to go to Amsterdam together. Don't get me wrong, I really love that book.
Oh, wait for our video where we recommend YA contemporary, because I'm pretty sure he's going to mention that
but they're so hyper surrealized, and it's just like this beautiful, like faraway, sparkly painting of possibility, but not probability. Same stuff happens.
I like that line.
Same, right? Possibility, possibility, but not probability. So same thing happens here in traditional YA fashion of that sense. In the terminally ill genre, but who cares? Even if they're not terminally ill, a random trip to Paris, or suddenly a safari, and you know,
it's fun though. It's escapist.
It's so hot, and so it's like, oh my god, it's a fantasy, but set in reality. Like, if you're gonna make something really weird, make dragons pop up. But that's just me. I like this book. Do pick it up if you want to see a really good story about how to heal and how to move on from grief, and how to make sense of really weird, complex feelings that is, guess what, life. So I like it.
Let me introduce you to one of my other favorite books of 2017. Forest of a Thousand Lanterns by Julie Dao. This is the first in a series. I'm not sure if it's a duology or a series, so let me just say series. It's about a girl named Shi Feng. She has basically been told her entire life that she is fated to become the Empress of Fenglu. It's all the shenanigans that ensue in her pursuit of this very destiny, including the not so nice things that she ends up doing. And when I say not so nice, it's a very kind way of putting some of the
well, if it's kingdoms and queens and like
here. So it's a combination of like court intrigue and gods playing with the destiny of mortals. There's also that. It's just so good. She just really managed to combine the whole Snow White's evil stepmother story with all of this East Asian folklore. You know that she's struggling between doing what she knows is the right thing to do and the good thing to do, and the thing that she needs to do to get her destiny, which may not be so good.
It makes her a terrible person.
It makes you uncomfortable, but at the same time, you're just like, you also want her to get her destiny, so it's just like this weird mix. But it's so good. It's like an anti-villain story, an anti-heroine story, basically. And I loved it so much. It was just the setting was done so great, the lore was done so great. The court intrigue was very fun to watch because it was very memoirs of a geisha type court intrigue, which I like.
Ooh.
Definitely really enjoyed this one. Would definitely recommend it on the condition that you are aware you are definitely reading about someone who is not necessarily your typical YA heroine. I love this book, and I hope you guys check it out.
Next up is Exordium, Mirror's Edge. I think this is the first in a series of graphic novels. It's a futuristic setting, story about a girl who's kind of technically what passes for a thief, called a runner, I think. She gets involved with some pretty shady, like, criminal organizations who have ties to her, to her late parents, specifically her mother. And so again, coming of age tale in postmodern Siberia, right?
Postmodern Siberia.
If that's not even a real thing, I just thought that up on the spot. But it just sounded good to me to describe the whole futuristic, you know, kind of a thing. I guess it's just not my genre. That's why it doesn't really call to me. But it does have a very strong kind of coming of age feel to it. Where how do I find my place in the world? Where my only talents involve, you know, shady things. And I only got into this shady place and discovered my shady applicable talents because my parents were murdered or maybe died by, you know, indirect shady means. If it's your totally genre, go for it, pick it up. It's a really cool science fiction-y, you know, cyberpunk kind of deal, and might like it.
A Short History of the Girl Next Door. This is by Jared Reck. It's a YA contemporary about a boy named Matt, and he is in love with his next door neighbor and has been for a while.
Mine. Sorry.
Haven't even continued. Anyway, so the story basically chronicles the moments leading up to him realizing he's in love with her, as well as what's currently going on in their lives. And then something happens and everything changes. And I know that sounds really vague, but I also am not sure if the thing that happens is a spoiler, so I'm not gonna say it. I like this one. It took time to come to a point where I actually liked Matt, because he was a little bit hard for me to like at first, but eventually I did come to a point where I felt like I could identify with some of the things he was feeling and some of the things he's been through, and actually his level of introvertedness and social awkwardness is something I could totally see as sort of a reflection of something I went through or was like ages ago. I still am, but you know, it's tempered down now.
It's a thing. It's the only reason this works.
I just think it's a very, very interesting take on the situation. It's not quite what I expected it to be, which was a good thing. And I think if you are intrigued at all by the premise, then you should definitely check it out. Plus, it's a really short book too.
And it's a killer blurb. What do you do when you realize you're not the star of your own story?
I know, that was actually the reason I picked
E.g. kindergarten for me. So that's...
So yeah,
went all the
definitely
way.
check it out if you're interested.
Alrighty, so my next two books are, and I may have shown them on separate hauls, I thought were actually the two parts of a series written by Catherine Constable, because I got this at the EA, the Wolf Princess, the White Tower, and then at the back it says praise for the Wolf Princess, and I thought, oh man, a book two, that's terrible. I have to go find the first book, which is this. And so I finally put them together. You know I don't read blurbs, neither does she. Pick the first book up and I'm like, I don't think this has anything to do with the other thing. It has nothing to do with it. And then I realized it halfway through. And so what I did discover instead was Catherine Constable, who wrote these two books, is just a master at modern fairy tales. I want to keep saying modern because technically you got your fairy tales of old, and then you've got that era where you've got the little princess in a secret garden, and there's something so otherworldly and whimsical about those, right? And I grew up on those books, plus The Wolves of Willoughby Chase. I mean, it's so surreal and hyper realistic, right? That I didn't notice that was what was going on with these books, because they're set in modern times. I mean, they have cell phones and what have you. But with The Wolf Princess, just a brief background, because I liked the White Tower better than Wolf Princess. It starts off with a young girl who's like this little nobody at a boarding school, right? I mean, there's a heartbreaking opening scene where they're telling her to not use the sweater that she's wearing because it's full of holes, and she's like, that's all I've got. Until suddenly hijinks ensue, and she and her best mates find themselves on a train to St. Petersburg, where they get sidetracked, and the Wolf Princess comes to them, and this whole surreal, you know, magical destiny starts to unfold. All of it is in a contemporary setting, so it's a contemporary fairy tale. I was not a huge fan of this book as I am of this one, but what they do have in common, and I'll get to White Tower in a bit, what they do have in common is that it's just so magical in a modern way. If that's even a thing. And what I love about White Tower, which I think is a huge improvement on Wolf Princess, is that suddenly there's like alchemy and deep histories and flight, even literal flight, actual flight, and things. And so this particular story is about a girl who seems to have been descended from the founder of a local college that specializes in alchemy and science and all of those things, and legends surrounding it about how the sentinels, which look like stone angels, actually come alive somehow, somewhere, and their experience about flight back at that school. And so what is her place in all of this thing, and what is the secret and the mystery of the White Tower? It's so beautifully rendered, so beautifully done. I can see it like it's like in my head, like a beautiful kind of classic film, but set in a modern day setting. So if you guys like modern day fairy tales, like if there was a next generation of what things like A Little Princess and The Wolves of Willoughby Chase and The Secret Garden would look like, Catherine Constable would be, I think, in the leading the pack, if not the actual leader in that kind of genre.
Okay, my next book is also middle grade, and it's Clicked by Tamara Ireland Stone. This is the story of a girl named Allie, and she has been at a coding camp all summer with a bunch of other girls, and she's created this app called Clicked. Clicked is an app where you basically, based on a few questions you answer that highlight your personality and all of that, you can actually find people you click with. Isn't that clever?
It's
But
like
anyway,
Tinder for
it's fun, though, 'cause
personalities.
it's like it's scavenger hunty, because when you are within 100 feet, something happens. When you're within a smaller amount of time, something else happens, and it's great until you finally meet up. So it's kind of fun, it's kind of interesting. But Allie is supposed to enter this app into a competition called Games for Good. But before she can do that, she discovers there's a glitch and that it might reveal very private information for people. So obviously that's a problem. So she spends most of the time trying to figure out how to get rid of this glitch and how to fix things, and as she does so, a lot of other things are falling apart because of this glitch. It's this interesting take on what it means to be living in a world where everything digital is such a big part of everyone's lives, especially the younger generations, and I thought that was very cool. I love that it's like a story where you see a girl main character, and a lot of other characters too, very interested in coding and all of those things, because it's still not a very common field for a lot of people. But yeah, so it was definitely also a story that I had to warm up to, because it does read a little young since it's middle grade. But then there's also the highlights of having good friendships. There's the app, which is really fun, and the concept of it. The idea of Games for Good, which is incredible, by the way. I think it's such a great concept for a coding competition for young people. And I also think that there's a ship, and I kind of wish the ship would sail. It's a very interesting story, really quick read because it's short yet again, and I really enjoyed it.
But I finally got my hands on a copy from the New York Public Library of Howard Wallace PI. I thought it started off a little slow for me because I had read the second book first, which by the way stands pretty much alone without the first. So this now feels to me more like a prequel than it is like the first book, because I read Shadow of a Pug first. But you know what? This was an uphill climb. It started off a little slow because I already knew who Howard and Ivy were, but this just shows how their friendship works, and it's actually oddly enough more dramatic than the second book, which I still love. It doesn't take anything from the second book away. If anything, it probably outshines it a little bit. But then again, if you get to this height, the second book builds on it, so the entire experience is great. I just love Howard and Ivy.
I really think middle grade noir is such a fun genre. Just the idea of it.
Correction, I correct myself. So erratum. It is apparently not middle grade noir. It is apparently middle grade hard boiled. Hard boiled is no. Check this out. I did some research because noir is apparently a branch of fiction where it's about like, you know, villains and not the detective. Hard-boiled is the official term, and it's just noir because, you know, I got confused and people don't really do Google as much as they would. So anyway, so it's middle grade hard-boiled, and people have been sort of.
Sounded better.
I know it does though, right? But then again, you know, is it Roman noir? It's a whole. I don't want to like teach a whole class because I can't on literary subgenres and genres. But either way, it's got so much heart to it. It does keep that whole kind of all of these people, you know, maybe I'll get bail money, and really what he's talking about is he's in the principal's office. There are so many elements to this book, to this series that I am completely in love with, and I'm inspired to even create my own like stories of this kind. Just you know, there he is like in his bathrobe and his fedora. This is where Howard gets his fedora. It is so cute. It felt like a rite of passage, and for heaven's sake, I want to buy this boy a real trench coat, not his
not a ratty bathroom.
Not a ratty. They washed it at the end, but it was ratty the whole time. But I really, that's how much I love Howard and Ivy so much. I want to get them both like trench coats and hats.
Make them legit.
I know. I would totally sponsor their little business card. It's so cute, Wallace and Mason. Anyway, so do pick it up. It's the cutest thing ever, and it's real stuff because it's about, at the end of the day, it's about friendship. At the end of the day, it's about difficult life situations that kids go through that are real. It doesn't go away, and this is exactly what drives kids crazy. It's because their friends are leaving them, or their parents are getting divorced, and amidst all of the detective hijinks, that's what all of these kids are just worried about. So and they cope by pulling together and stuff. So it's a really great thing. Cool.
Anyway, so those are all the books that we've read so far in August. If you have any specific questions about any of the books, feel free to leave them in the comments.
Yeah, you guys have been awesome commenters.
Yes, we've been so grateful. I've tried to get better at replying because I'm terrible at that. Macky's really good at it.
Because I'm terrible at being a human being.
And he tells me when
that stays away from his phone.
But yeah, if you guys have any questions, let us know. If you want to talk about what you're reading and recommend it to us, we would love to
we appreciate those. We're making a list right now.
And again, we're so grateful for everyone who watches and comments and subscribes. Also, both of us will be at Book Net Fest, which is happening in, by the time this video goes up, maybe about 2 weeks, I'd say. So yeah, hopefully we see you there. And
She's on the
say
panel.
hi.
I'm just there for moral support.
I'm on one of the panels, but I will be around all
Should I
day.
bring a banner?
And
like, go!
No!
Okay, I'm sorry.
I am on one of the panels, like you
Put
was saying.
sparkles on it.
Us in the Industry, that's the title of my panel. And he will be around all day in the audience. So we hope you guys say hi if you see us around. Alright, if you want to find us on other social media, all of that is down below. And we would love it if you like this video and subscribe to the channel. And we will see you guys soon.